All right, we'll give it about 5 or 10 seconds to buffer, and then all right, here we go. Welcome everybody to episode 147 of In the Pits Paintball Podcast. This podcast is focused on everything that has to do with the paintball scene here in Texas, from professional players and teams to new divisional programs, local tournament series, field owners, Texas-based brands, even photographers and videographers. Every week, we'll have a short and sweet episode with a new topic and new special guest. I'm Christian Dallas Smith. I'm a player for the Texas Titans. And this episode, we're going in the pits with none other than Oliver Lang, co-owner of Hormesis and one of the greatest players to ever play the game. Oliver, how are you doing this evening?
Well, it's my morning and, just a good day already. It's always nice to start the day off with a podcast and conversations about paintball. So let's go.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You're all the way across the world, 13 hours ahead of me here in Texas. And the last time I got to speak with you was actually right after it was going around that you were coming back for World Cup of 2022. And I was fortunate enough to get to sit down, speak with you for a couple minutes. And yeah, been an honor and a pleasure to get to continue this.
Totally. I love to see how it's evolved. Last time we were just at the paintball field with, I think, like a little microphone, and look at us now.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And we've got a lot of people already here sounding off in the chat saying what's up. And I think one of those right here, we'll of course, get to those questions that are in the chat as we get through the show. But yeah, let's get started. This one's brought to us by XTPL Events. So for those listening here that maybe got their start in paintball after your retirement in 2016, how long was your competitive run and what were the teams that you played for over the years?
Well, I started my career really young. I started playing about 14. At that time, there wasn't many kids playing. We were kind of the first kids onto the scene. There was like a few random others, Kenny Clamper and such, but Marcus Nielsen. And I turned pro at 17. So, that was even still to this day, I think kind of a rarity. It was dominated by older men at that time. At that time, people who were 30 years old felt to me that they were like, extinct at that point. So, I pretty much had two pro teams I ever played with. I mean, I had a variety of teams I've played with in my career, obviously Dynasty and the Ironmen. The Ironmen was kind of my dream team to go play for. And they were like, they were the dynasty of their days. And to be on that team was always just a big accomplishment, in which I had achieved at 17. So I turned pro. I went to the Ironmen. I was on there for 2 years. We accomplished a lot. We won a World Cup in 2000 and the overall series, which was the first time anybody had ever done that at 17. So that was a big accomplishment for me. And, riding out the year after that, things started to change. Dynasty started to form. It wasn't Dynasty yet. It was a team that actually we'd played with the year before. Back then, there used to only be Amateur A and Amateur B and Pro. There's a lot of divisions now. So we won in Amateur A, and then the next year I went pro with Ironmen, and then I had 2 years on the Ironmen, and then I went back to Dynasty, and that's when Dynasty really started to show its true colors. And we went to Europe. We won a lot of things all over America, all over the world. So I would say those were the heydays. That was, early 2000s. And then I ended up going back to Ironmen 2006, because I always wanted to play this at a very high level, and I wanted it to be a professional career for myself. Somebody's coming from not much, and I wanted to make a living playing paintball. So the Ironmen gave me that opportunity. I rejoined with them. I also felt it was a testament to my career in a sense of, people were saying that I was the best, and obviously I was young, so I didn't know exactly who I was or, what I was yet. And this was an opportunity for me to really test my professionalism. So going back to the Ironmen 2006, it took me about a year to recalibrate the team. 2007, I believe we became world champions. 2008, we became world champions again, which was, again, the first time anybody had ever won world championships back to back. Dynasty's now done it 4 times in a row, so they crushed that record. But yeah, and then back to Dynasty, and rode out Dynasty there for the next I don't know, 7 or 8 years or something. So I think in total my professional career was about 15 years professional, and then about 4 or 5 years playing non-professional. I did have a year of hiatus also, which was kind of the foot in the door to retirement for me. Like I said, it was very rare to be proficient at this sport past the age of 30 when I was playing. And the system, the pecking order that was kind of starting to formulate, obviously starting with myself, was, okay, we're the younger kids. We're going to train harder. We're going to practice harder, and we're just going to push the old guys out of the way. Doesn't work like that anymore, unfortunately. Dynasty's in their 40s, and they're still crushing it. So that's a call out to all the young bucks out there who are trying to make a name for themselves. You really got to get your foot in the door and push these guys out.
Yeah, definitely. These guys aren't going anywhere unless they're forced out. I think we're starting to see, I guess, the changing of the guard with largely with Paintball Fit coming in as the new rookie team, and they got it together very quickly. And a lot of people are making those comparisons to the Dynasty of the early days to Fit now,
Totally.
where they're coming in and just absolutely changing the game and making it their own. Yeah, and as far as like the young kids, we'll definitely talk about one of them who you just got back from seeing, Justin Hodges, who was the winner of the dual tour. So I think it's starting to happen, but at the same time, the trend is definitely the older guys, the more experience, and the paintball IQ seems to still be king.
Yeah, but I really think, I'm a huge fan of Paintball Fit for multiple reasons. Obviously, because of their story, and they've won together in lower divisions and moved their way up, and they've kind of obviously proved themselves by winning all of the amateur events in a row, which is not an easy thing to do ever. I don't know. There's not many teams who have done that. Again, Iron Kids kind of did that at one point, and we were the first of the fashion to make those types of marks in the industry. But Paintball Fit really cracked the code, and it's not a hard code to crack. They play a lot of paintball. They love the sport. They eat, breathe, and sleep it. That's exactly what we did. So they are the next Dynasty. In fact, when they won World Cup this last World Cup, it was one of the first things I said to them. I was like, "You guys are the new Dynasty," And I think that might be intimidating for a lot of people who are playing, and especially the veterans, because they are the new kids on the block. And but for me, as a retired person in the industry, I love it, because actually you become more of a fan of people when you stop playing. When you're playing, you have to somehow, you have to put your guard up a little bit against other teams and other players, because you want to win, you're a competitor. But once you can relax out of that, you can start to really appreciate people more. And I really do appreciate Fit and what they're doing. And, they have a field. No pro teams have a field like that they're working at, that they're, that they're putting in their blood, sweat, and tears every weekend, that they're fostering new developments. And, I think that's why paintball in Texas is, probably the best in the world. And, you really have to tip your hat to these guys who are doing it. And again, it's not a secret. It's exactly what we did. That's how SC Village used to be. That's how Mare Island used to be. And they're cracking the codes. And, if anybody wants to do it, just follow that mold.
Yeah, just who knew that hard work was the key to success? It seems like that was.
I could disagree with hard work, to be honest. It's not hard work. It's just love for the game. These guys don't ever think about, I got to get out of bed and I got to go do this hard work. I'm just not I don't believe in that in any sport, to be honest. It's just, you do it because you love it, and then you achieve greatness in that process of it. I never woke up ever anytime and was like, I got to go do this hard work. It's not hard work. If you ask Fit, truly, it's not hard work. They're literally having the best time ever playing paintball with each other and achieving success. you could call that hard work, I guess, in a sense. But what I'm saying is it's just really, that dire need to play, wake up every weekend and do it. You don't even think about it. It's not hard.
Yeah, absolutely. They have a just other level of connection to the game and to the community with not just their playing, but all of the other facets that they're involved with Hydra, with the events that they put on, the glow ball, and they're pushing the boundaries on those fronts as well.
Totally. I mean, and it's a family affair, so again, that's a code.
100%. So this one's brought to us by QBR Officials. So between all of the different podcasts out there that you've appeared on, obviously Ryan's show, the episodes that Alex has appeared on, we've heard a lot about the origin story of what is now known as San Diego Dynasty. So what was it back then that kept you all together, even when other teams and other big offers started to come knocking?
Well, so, when we graduated high school, we were pretty clueless. At least I know I was. Ryan and Yosh, they had, applied to go to San Diego State, and Alex and I were a year younger than them in terms of grade, and they were going down there. I had no clue what to do in terms of college or school. I didn't think about it. My mom never forced it upon me. We didn't really even have the money for college. She didn't save me up a college fund or anything. And, Alex is like, I'm going to go to San Diego and I'm going to be with Ryan and Yosh, and you should come. And I had just won like a European event with at that point, it was Diablo, which was the paint brand that was GI essentially now. And they'd formed like an all-star team. It was like me, Todd Martinez, Lasoya, Rich Telford, Steve Rabikoff, like a bunch of super G's, and we had won, and I'd won like $600 or something at that time. That was a lot of money, and so we just moved to San Diego. And really, to answer that question, is we all lived together. So we all lived in. It's a funny story, actually, a little X-rated at points, but we had rented a house on the San Diego State campus. At one point, we were living in like a 4-person or 5-person house. I think there was like 6 of us living in there. I was sharing a bedroom with Marcus Nielsen. We wouldn't share a bedroom. Like, he would sleep in it for 3 days, and then I would sleep in it for 3 days, kind of thing. The other time, we'd sleep on the couch. And we were playing paintball, so we were traveling a lot. And then we graduated and we moved. We actually rented a fraternity house. So we got like an 11-bedroom house. And so we had 11 guys living in there. I think at one point, maybe 12. We had adopted some street kids. They were living in like the closet and on the couch. So, at one point, there's probably like 14 people living in there. And that was really the glue that held us together. That was when Dynasty really started to flourish. We were playing a lot of paintball back then. I don't think people even play that much today. We'd have 6 European events, 5 European events, 5 NPPLs, 5 PSPs, or whatever they were at that point. So that's 15 events plus extra events. We'd go and do, appearances in foreign countries, playing with different teams, and then plus practices. And then pretty much there wasn't a weekend off ever. I think I played paintball for 10 years straight, Saturday and Sunday, every weekend. Didn't even miss a weekend. I think that's also why I got better than a lot of these guys, because guys did miss weekends here and there. But pretty much rain or shine or hungover or whatever the circumstance was, we were playing. And also, we were young, we were riding the wave. And that was, just a really glorious moment in paintball history. Just in general, the whole evolution of the sport was occurring. X-Ball had just kind of been created. The equipment was there was an arms race with the equipment, Bob Long's guns, the Angel. Obviously, we were sponsored by Angel. They were an incredible sponsor, incredible people for the industry, the events that they threw. Yeah, and again, just right time, right place. And that was really what allowed us to be bonded. Also, really, nobody was really available. I mean, people did leave. Yosh went to the Ironmen. I had gone to the Ironmen. Opie had gone to the Ironmen. So there was a few of us who kind of dispatched, so to say, always to return to Dynasty in different waves and different iterations.
Yeah, that seems to be the I guess the tradition of guys that over the years, not just you all, but other players like Kyle Spica, Brandon Short, other top players across the, I guess, the generations that have come to Dynasty, left, come back. It seems like Dynasty seems to be a home for a lot of players.
Yeah, and also the Ironmen. The Ironmen was a Southern California team before Dynasty was born. Obviously legendary team. They were JT Paintball was the brand. At that time, they were in San Diego. They were in Chula Vista. I worked there. Different people worked there. Skinny Kevin worked there. Ryan at one point. So we had different iterations of kind of going back and forth. The Ironmen were just never really interested in Alex or Ryan for some reason. Maybe they were unavailable. I don't know. Yosh became an Ironman. I was an Ironman. So it was just kind of two teams in a specific location. California's, I could say, is probably the best place for paintball just because of the weather. Also, California paintball had a specific style based on the Ironmen's evolution. The Ironmen were always an aggressive team. That's how I like to play. That's how I learned how to play. I don't really know any other way. To me, it's not as exciting. I think X Factor and a lot of these teams, they kind of were spawned off of that style of play. Definitely Avalanche. Avalanche was a powerhouse team, superstar team at that point, and they were kind of brought in from all over the country, some even from Canada. But the way they played, back then was different. It was all about you have to play aggressive, otherwise you don't win. Now it's changed into this really slow, methodical game, which is a heavy hitting version of it, but it's obviously not as exciting. Unfortunately, I think some teams fall into play that style better. I think Fit kind of plays that style. I know they're probably aggressive also, but they're probably more methodical. That's more of a Florida style play. Damage kind of invented that. We always hated it. Hated playing against it, but it works.
Yeah, definitely. I think we also saw it with more recently with the Texas teams, especially when the AC Dallas Camp Rose and the Greg Pauly system, where it was much more heavy focus on zone control and clock management, which I think in a lot of sports we're seeing, even like professional football, hockey, soccer, all of them. They're evolving more and more towards this clock management style where you have this higher percentage plays that you're making instead of just what you used to see, like especially in like college football 20 years ago, where it was about running up the score as much as you can, and whoever won that slugfest was the winner. But nowadays, I think definitely seeing more about the clock management and control, which is also a sign that I think paintball in general across all of the divisions, the players are getting smarter.
Yeah, we could debate that. I think also, I think a big, okay. So, you have to look at it. And again, probably your listeners might be new to the sport. And so that's kind of what's fun. I guess I am a veteran in the sense now, but you have to recognize that back in the day, it wasn't that like you had a specific amount of time, 7-man, 10-man, and you could play a specific way in the way that it unfolded. And then pretty much based on what was happening in the circumstances of that particular game, you would have to figure out, we would call it closing. You had to figure out how to close the game. And at that last, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds, whatever it is, you'd have to put it together. And that's where it is very exciting. I don't think a lot of teams know how to put it together. I mean, even Paintball Fit doesn't know how to put it together still. Like watch their last event, they had up bodies plenty of time, against a team who's subpar tauntauns, and, they can't even put it together to close it out. So, methodical, yes, maybe. The fields are a lot different. I think the fields are really bad personally now, in general, and they've never even reached out to talk to me or talk to anybody who actually plays the freaking game. They just build these monstrosities, which I think is really a bad design personally. Big bricks, 60 bunkers. Like if you run a field and operate a field, you know how laborious it is to set up a field. Again, that's kind of what Elite 101 is trying to change. But back in the day, like, yeah, you had to be methodical, but like a smart player could still figure out how to put you in and get to a specific spot to win the game. To me, that's real paintball. So if you look at the old X-ball fields, they're wide open, and with that wide openness allows actually very high intelligent IQ paintball players to shine, because I could see who's putting me in. I could put them 2 guys in, 3 guys in, 4 guys in, whatever the case is, have help from my buddy to put a guy in, and then I can make a move. Whereas in now, there's little slivers of cuts where guys are just going into to shoot 8 pods, and, they're just going to shoot 8 pods for as long as they can until, either they shoot you or you slip through. There's no more true method. It's just kind of a crapshoot. That's my personal opinion on the way the fields are playing now and the way the fields are set up and the bunker designs. That didn't used to happen.
Fair enough. And kind of along similar lines there, this one brought to us by the San Antonio 3v3 series. So the scene and the game has changed and evolved a whole lot since you first came in. So what is one way that it's different nowadays that you think is for the better?
Well, I just think that there's a lot more people playing, there's a lot more teams, there's a lot more youth. That's definitely a perk. Unfortunately, the history of paintball has always been run by, larger conglomerates, brands, who own the leagues and such. And, I think now it's really just a moneymaker. I hate to say it, I don't think it was ever really that before. I mean, I'm sure people made money on events. I know that in the PSP days, they weren't making money. And so things needed to change. Otherwise, pretty much it was going to die. And I think it changed into what it is now. And I don't think it's better personally. I think that there's a lot of people playing, which is definitely much better. I think the equipment is stunted. You've got pretty much Ferraris that can only go 60 miles an hour. And I'm not saying that I want to go 110 or 100, 200, but, there definitely needs to be some type of, the equipment in general. When the Halo came out, the Halo was a Texas invention. Somebody from Texas invented it. When the Halo came out, it changed the game because, we were shooting view loaders with little air bursts to help the ball spin, and then just a little what I forget what's called. The rotor was in there spinning, and it would just kind of popcorn the ball down, so you couldn't shoot so fast. But when there's the force fed Halo, man, that changed the game. And then Bob Long was just a great addition. I mean, he was obviously a massive pioneer, again, Ironman player, to the game. And, he was always kind of pushing the boundaries on what the equipment could do. And I think he pushed it almost too far, to a point where, there was a time where it was Wild West out there. We can talk about that, but they had to figure out how to scale it back and to make it, I don't know, somewhat fair, I guess. They tried that with the 15 balls full auto. Paintball was good then, and it was a good moneymaker. They shot a lot of paint. People shot a lot of paint then also, but there was an equilibrium. Now, what do they shoot, like 10.5 or 13 balls a second or something?
10.5. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just don't think that's necessarily better,
Okay. So on the flip side of that same question, as far as the direction that we've headed in now, if it were up to you and you had the power to change the direction or one of the roads that we took, what change would you have made?
Are you talking about in tournament paintball?
It could be in tournament paintball. It could be in terms of the scene or the community as a whole. What's a different direction that you would have liked to see instead?
Well, I just think the fields are a major issue. I think that too many bunkers, too hard to keep a quality field running at a certain level. And again, so, that's kind of to foreshadow the whole Elite 101 thing, which is definitely a much minimized version of the sport, but it does solve a lot of problems. So to answer your question, I think the field setups, I think less bunkers, better bunkers, something that every field could run and operate quite well, and you could actually start to play the game a little bit more in terms of visibility. When we were playing 7-man, I started to really hate 7-man at one point because, they just started to clog up the whole field. And how I see that is, as somebody who's coming in, who spends a lot of their time becoming proficient at the sport and learning the actual sport, it actually hurts me as a player when I can't see things. So visibility on the field, clarity of the field, obviously, making it spectator friendly. So, they went from 7-man to 5-man, which maybe helped that a little bit, but it didn't really, I do think the original X-Ball was still the best, because the reason why I say that is because there was a lot of room for error, which allows lots of possibilities. Whereas now there's no room for error. You can win a 1-point match, and X Factor has done that. I've watched them, and that's just boring and lame, but I get it, because the stakes are, again, that's funny because the stakes aren't high, but there's a lot on the line. There's a lot of energy. There's a lot of time spent on it. A lot of teams spend a lot of money to do this stuff. And so, to win by 1 point will get you through, right? It'll get you that win. It doesn't make for exciting paintball. So to kind of answer your question, I think a recalibration of the field setup. I feel like a type of elongated match, more points played, less emphasis on. So like original X-Ball was 2 20-minute halves, no race to points. So it was a bloodbath, and that's what people want to see. And that was the whole intention and idea around X-Ball. Dick Clark, I don't know if you know who Dick Clark is, but he was the person who created American Bandstand in the 50s. He was a very famous producer, and and he got together with the guys from, at that point, again, I think it was Draxus at this point, from Diablo, and they were the paint manufacturers, and they were also the guys who were really pushing the emphasis on the growth of the sport, and that's why they made X-Ball. It is a hockey-like game. So you needed less players on the field, but you needed more players on your team because you needed more rotation. I think if you wanted to do something right now to really save the game, is get rid of, 75% of the trash pro teams. And to be honest, there's a lot of trash pro teams. Everybody looks pretty good, but they're not that good. I mean, look, there's only 5 teams that really get in there and win anyways. I would bulk those teams up, and I'd make more time playing the game. So you have a better quality match with higher professional level players playing against higher level professional players. So let's just say X Factor had 12 amazing players. Dynasty had 12 amazing players. Heat has 12 amazing players. Impact has 12 amazing players. Russians have 12 amazing players. Fit has 12 amazing players. I mean, and you battle for a long time, that's good paintball. Like, I don't want to watch majority of these teams play anymore. And I'm just, kind of being honest, because I do watch. I'm a patron of Ghost Sports, and sometimes it's really boring and painful to watch some of these terrible teams play. Yeah, and maybe they get a chance and maybe it's exciting, but I think it's because the fields are watered down and, the points it's a 2-3 game, like I only get to watch 3 or 5 matches, 5 points. We used to play 5 points in like 2 minutes.
Right.
So you get a lot of breakouts, you get a lot of bloodbath, you get a lot of mayhem, you get a lot of people getting shot, you get a lot of people getting bunkered, you get a lot of movement in the snake, you get a lot of movement down the Doritos. That's exciting. So I would move into doing that. I would trim the fat. I'd trim the fat and I'd bulk up the better teams. I get the sponsors should get behind those 6 or 7 teams or whatever they are, 8 teams. 8 teams is how it used to be. The only reason they have 20 teams in the NXL is because that's how they pay. The entry fee covers the cost to run the pro field with the referees and the setup and everything. So it's a money thing.
Yeah, fair enough. I know with the shows that Tom Cole has been on recently, he's reiterated that a major problem with the way that things are currently is the cost of the production. And certainly the number of bunkers goes into that. And then, trying to fit all of these teams onto one field, then you really handicap yourself as far as like daylight hours and the availability of ref crew. So I definitely agree that a major overhaul would be needed at this point, because they're pretty much capped out, and you wouldn't be able to make any changes at this point without just completely overhauling what we have currently.
Yeah, again, you're asking me these questions. We're
Mhm.
talking about them. They're probably not going to do any of it. So, no one's ever called me ever to ask me any type of questions except for Christian Dallas Smith, which is funny because, in an industry that you've been in for a long time that you know very well, people at the high end, they just don't seem to care. I think that they're making a good amount of bang for their buck, with all the divisions. I mean, I don't know, it goes to division 4 or 5 or 6, or I don't even know. And that's really only just to get, that's to get more entry fees. And again, back in the day, it was pro, amateur A, and amateur B. Again, less players. So, that's probably something they had to evolve to, which I understand. But I think they could still keep, amateur or Division 6 or whatever it is. And yeah, it's a race to this much. And then the pros is a specific thing that's a lot different. And if you're a kid on the path to becoming pro, you go through each one, and each one's a little bit different. It gets a little bulkier. And if you ever make it to the pros, it's obviously the bulkiest. It's the most robust match. It's, again, hour-long match. I don't know,
Yeah, for sure. I think the one of the main points that Tom Cole had said on the Coaches Show episode last night was any changes that they would make would likely require them to cut back on the divisions that they offered, making the event smaller. Because right now I think he said they're at like 9 fields per event, and which is a massive traveling circus, as he puts it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the question that I've had for a little bit is like, what is the scope of the NXL and what is their mission? Is it to bring a great paintball experience to like a traveling show and bring it across the US? Or is it to be the pinnacle of our sport, to have the highest level of competition? And I think that it's very difficult to do both.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think they know. And, that's something when you go into any type of major business, you want to know, your flagpole, where you're headed and what you're doing and what the point of this is. I think that they've done an amazing job, and I give Tom Cole a lot of credit. His job is very difficult. I think he does an outstanding job. I think the NXL, the setup, the way that it's organized is definitely probably the best that it's ever been. I think that there's a little bit of holes in the game of actually how it's being played, and that's pretty much something they'll probably figure out how to adjust. He's tried a few things, people have barked at him, but for the most part, I would just like the simple thing is you just make the pro more robust and you make the other divisions lighter, make the field smaller, make it less bunkers, I don't know, make it less guys, and have a full stepping stone path to the pros if that's what you're choosing to get into, But I mean, when we used to play X-Ball, man, like it was fun, dude. Like it's not what it is now. It's not as fun. I mean, there's good paintball being played for sure at a high level, when you get into the finals and those top 4 teams are there. But the other versions, especially at that time, like, I mean, people were really good back then. I mean, I think they were better back then. I mean, Fedorov was better back then than he is now, so there's a lot of difficult comparisons to really truly understand. But I think, you need to make the pros a bloodbath. And, it's like we would go in there and it felt like you were in a war, man. It felt like you were in a real war. You'd come out, jammed fingers, 500 welts, your equipment would be like falling apart, it was a real war of attrition. And now it's just a little bit lackluster, if you ask me, in the lightness of the
Fair enough, but I will challenge you a little bit on the the statement that pros back then are better than pros now. If you're taking the entire sample size of what was pro, and I'm thinking of also like the teams, maybe like the bottom 4, the bottom 8 teams like Green Bay Boom, Trade My Gun Outlaws, like even Chicago Aftershock when they were struggling right before they dissolved for a couple of years. And going back and watching some of that footage, I would argue that those teams, if they were to compete today, would struggle even in semi-pro. I think that the level of play across the board has risen dramatically. I think players have gotten significantly better at shooting lanes, at the crossfield communication, at the discipline and holding zones. I think that players today are much better across the board. I think that maybe back then the gap between the top pro teams and the bottom pro teams was wider, for sure. But as far as the general level, I think it's higher.
You're coming in at also, I would say, a different moment in time that I'm actually talking about. So, like, let's just think about in the original NXL days, those teams, like the original, even Miami Effect, who was like not a low level team. I mean, Chris Osoya, Rusty Glaze, Brian Fow, Travis Lemansky, the old Aftershock. I'm not talking about the new Aftershock. Aftershock died way long ago before probably you even saw. Now, those teams, those players, John Richardson, Fedorov at that time, I mean, the Russian Legion at that time was way better than the Russian Legion now. And I'm just going to be straight up with that. I mean, J-Rab's been around for decades now. J-Rab is good, really good now. J-Rab was even better then. Fedorov was even better then. And again, I'm talking about an era of this that I think you might have been too young for, to be honest.
Yeah, and I can see that. I mean, my entry into the game was 2015. So this is my 11th season, which is a long time, but also like not very long at all compared to the history of the game.
No, that's right. And so, you're missing out on a little bit of the paintball history on a lot of those guys. I mean, dude, they were really good, I mean, they're still good. I'm not taking away from them so much currently. I'm just saying, okay, if you look at the old Russian Legion line, okay, Fedorov at his peak, Malloy's probably at his peak now, but Malloy's always been really insanely good. The tall Russian kid, I don't know his name, Sergey, at a peak. Mishka at a peak. There's one other guy, I can't even think of it, Pantalev. These guys at their peak, those 5 guys at that peak would beat the 5 Russian Legions right now, for sure. Guaranteed.
Fair enough. All right. So I'm gonna look. We've
those
got
guys
a lot
are still
of people.
Good, right? Sergey's still good. Mishka's still good. Fedorov's still good. Malloy's still good, right? And now they're all playing on different teams for the most part. And there's a couple other Russians there that were super insanely good too. That kind of fizzled off. But like the old Russians, I mean, they were threatening, bro. They were threatening. Like they were insane.
Yeah,
and now they're good too, but they're not. It's a different game again, so it's hard to compare. Truly, it is a very difficult contrast. And maybe you're right, and maybe I'm too blunt, but like, and maybe I'm living in my glory days. But I do feel like there was a crescendo height of caliber of play, and I think that was before 2011.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's definitely a different game nowadays. I can't really say my perspective on it just because I didn't experience it back then. I was like, my entry to the game was right when the current iteration of the NXL started back up. So I missed out on PSP. I missed out on NPPL. I missed out on like even the NXL before that, the 7-man, the 10-man days. I pretty much am just the current version of X-Ball, the split deck.
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I get it. And so, actually, and you're right. Maybe if you go watch it, but it's hard to see when you watch old film because I don't, just they didn't have the quality, the quality of craft that they have now to film things is definitely better. I did watch some of these old, I think they're called. I was just talking about yesterday on Ryan's thing. It was called the paintball sports access, something like that. There's some of those still on YouTube, and that's before 2012, and they're good. Like, watch them. Paintball access.
All right, yeah, we'll do. So I do want to go here in the chat because we've got a lot of people sounding off and putting some questions in here.
Cool.
So let's see. And Dan, I see a couple of yours in there. Shout out to Shelda. We'll
Shelda.
definitely get to those throughout the show. So let's see, where is it? So this one is actually from Dan, and he asks, "What do you think is still missing? Speaking of the media aspect, what do you think is still missing from media, if anything? We have a lot of podcasts that have popped up within the last couple of years. Alex has brought back the magazine format. We've got a lot of reels, especially blowing up. We've got photos still. So what else is out there that we haven't explored yet?"
That's a great question, Shelda. And actually, I think right now, in terms of media, we're definitely at a height. I feel like finally a lot of people are jumping in and being like, okay, I can do this. Like, I think before a lot of people were like, oh, I'm not so well versed in this. So who am I to start a YouTube channel on how to play paintball? But I feel like now there's been a few. I think we need more, to be honest. I think we need more paintball influencers. Like, I'd like to personally sponsor more paintball influencers, become a paintball influencer. I see there's one kid on the Russians. He was like a paintball influencer. He was like doing some sort of snap shooting drills. And then he was kind of like a nobody kid. And then now he's like on the Russian Legion in like a very small amount of time. Like, I think like a couple months he was picked up. And he just kind of put himself out there and he became seen. And I think if you want to be seen in this sport, you need to make an effort, which is to become some type of paintball influencer. So to really answer your question, Dan, on that, I think what's most important, where I see the biggest hole in the media, is it's not from anybody that's in the media. It's actually all of us on the sidelines, not liking, not sharing the post, maybe not commenting. Like, in every other sport, it's a community where everybody bands together because they're involved in the sport. And so I know people think that that's what people do in paintball, but like, we'll post something and it doesn't even get that many likes, or maybe you post something, it doesn't even get that many likes. Like, if there's 1 million people playing paintball and you're doing this podcast, 1,000 people should like it at least and share it instantly to get 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 likes or views. We're dwindling in a minimal amount of internal mutual respect on these platforms. I think the outside people who are listening, who maybe don't want to start a YouTube channel, who don't want to be an influencer, share and like the posts. That's how things go viral. And people don't do that. Like, people see a paintball thing and they just scroll past it. Like every paintball thing. Comment on every paintball thing. Share every paintball thing. If you go look at any type of like skateboarding, I follow skateboarding. I go into skateboarding, man, one photo of one guy from guys who haven't skateboarded in 30 years, liking and sharing the posts and commenting and being, that's an epic move. It's like, here we all, for some reason, the paintball community loves to, like, I don't know, belittle everybody who does anything like that. And that's lame. And so if you want to change the media, everybody needs to get on the algorithm and we need to all boost each other up and share this thing like crazy on media. And that's how we grow. Because then all of a sudden now 10 people who never played paintball before see it and get interested and want to go play a Paintball Fit. And, now they're invested, now they're liking, now they're scrolling, now they're commenting. So that's how the ripple effect works.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple people here in the chat saying there's definitely a lot of haters that are in the community, either on the inside of paintball or maybe they're not even involved in the community, but they just go online and they comment there are things how, oh, it's so lame. All he does is dump all of his paintballs on the ground, type comments that we see all the time. But yeah, I definitely
At least
think,
that's a comment, you know. It's almost better to comment something rude than not comment at all, to be honest. And that's just it for the sake of the algorithm.
fair enough.
You know.
To Dan's point, and I think this is a point that Matty Marshall has said time and time again. I think something that like the next evolution that we need to help build more of the storylines are the stats. And shout out to James Green, Greeny, who is behind the Pick'em Paintball, who has done the kill counts on Instagram. He's been posting stats from every single team, the kill count leaders, the top 3 players on each team, and not just like how many kills are confirmed to that player, but how they're getting those kills. Like, for example, if you look at Malloy's stats, most of his kills are on the move or gunfighting, whereas someone like Trenton Mason on Paintball Fit, who was the kill count leader in Atlantic City, I think 3/4 of his kills were off the break and zone control. So two very different styles there, but you're seeing the storylines start to build up, and you can build a lot. You can do a lot. You can have a lot more conversations around the numbers like that. So I think now that that's starting to get in, I think that it would be in the industry's best interest to fully get behind that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they've done stats. They had used to have epic stats. Also, again, prior 2011, you know, they had a full stat team out there doing it. Malloy was definitely beat me one year. I think I took second to him. I definitely won it one year. I know Archie won it one year. I don't know. It sounds cool. Does it really do anything? I don't know. And shout out to the guy who's doing it, because he's probably doing it for free and they're probably not paying him. So, you know, mad props to him. And I think it is cool. And I've seen a few different Instagram channels pop up with specific stats. I still don't know if that does it, you know, to be honest. I do think that it's nice in a world of statistics that you have some type of true rating on quality of players. Again, paintball is very difficult to do that. You know, it's probably somewhat concise and precise. But then again, you know, it's like you could still be the kill count leader, but still take 4th place in the tournament.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
you know, that's also what's really cool about Elite 1-on-1 is like, it's no more fluff, you know. It's no more like ambiguous. Well, who's the best? It's like Justin Hodges is the best. Look at the stats. And we have stats. We have a Hormesis Elite app free for everybody to download. You can get to go download it now. You can build a profile, and you can start dueling right away. And there's a huge variety of stats in there that are epic. And actually, in the future, I'll be able to zoom into, you know, Texas and see Christian Dallas Smith is, you know, the first place dueler. He's played this many duels. He's won this many duels. He has this many aces. He has this many slam dunks, which is a bunker, you know, and I can say, okay, actually, this guy's the best player in Texas. You know, it's not ambiguous anymore. And you're probably winning, you know, dual events if you're doing that. So then it's like, okay, this guy's legitimate. It's no more of, okay, he's pretty good. We should pick him up. You know, maybe could be good.
I can tell you, I mean, you know that I was there at the dual tour when you were at Paintball Fit a couple of years back. It's a great format, and we'll go ahead and talk about it now. So this one brought to us by pro player Jared Sherman, now new pickup for X Factor. So you recently returned home from the U.S., where you were putting on the Dual World Tour finale over in Alabama at Prime Paintball. And as you said, Justin Hodges took the title. I can tell you that kid's nasty with it. I attended the Hurricanes pro tryouts over the winter, and that guy was like head and shoulders above everybody else. It wasn't close. So as far as your experience with this world tour, how and the Joust and Duel Tour since its inception. How has the reception been since it began?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's just always interesting when you have to explain to somebody something, right? So that's also why paintball is still hard for people, is a lot of people just don't get it, and then the people who get it. So now I'm dwelling in that realm of people who get paintball but then don't get the duel or don't get the joust, right? So it's an even smaller percentage of individuals that have seen it or tried it or can buy into it. To answer your question straight up, it's been successful. I would say very successful. Could it be more successful? Absolutely. When you saw it, you were like, okay, I want to do this. And you held the joust at X Factor. I heard it was great. Colt told me it was great. I think you held another one later. Archie told me it was amazing. All these things take energy. So I think just, kind of to answer your question and even ask you a question in the same space is like, you saw it, you felt it, you did it, you ran some, how come you didn't do more of it? Right. So all these things just take energy, and, why haven't you done more of them? Are people not interested, or people can't afford it, or, or people are afraid, so or the field doesn't want you to do it, so, kind of answer your question by me asking you that question.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally a fair question. For me, part of it does take energy to organize, even though it is a much lower operating cost than a traditional X ball or 3-man event, local series, whatever. It's much less that's required. I think part of it is, at least specifically in Texas, there's always events going on. So there is a part of it where like scheduling becomes a question of, well, this weekend is NXL, which means the weekend before is the layout practice. Right after that is going to be USXBL. After that, you've got XTPL up at Paintball Fit, and then there's an event over in Houston. And then we're right back to the NXL schedule. So part of it is the dance of like, do I really want to host it? Well, there's no events on this weekend. Oh, wait, that's because it's Mother's Day weekend or it's Easter weekend. Those few times throughout the year where you just have to avoid, I guess, for lack of a better word, stepping on someone else's toes.
Totally.
But
well, I totally hear what you're saying, and I agree, because I ran into all those things also, and recognizing how much energy people put into the these other formats and the 5-man, and to be honest, I being in Texas, paintball in Texas is strong. Let's just be straight up with that. The rest of the world isn't like that. So I think the duel, Elite 101, the joust, maybe not even necessary in Texas. Although we're going to go to the new Giant Party Sports coming up here. We're going to do a big joust. So, because they messaged me and they want to do it. And I'm like, hell yeah. But to be honest, the whole conception of the Elite 101 is for areas that are not thriving. It's for people who don't have teams. It's for people who want to play in specific locations in the world that don't have a 60 set bunker kit or the size of a traditional field, or 2 fields, let alone. And it's a simple way to be able to exercise your mind and your athletic ability in the sport, on a much simplified form. So to answer your question, it's been a success. It's just, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of energy. It takes people to understand and to buy in. Not everybody has seen it. Not everybody has understood it. It's just going to take more time for people to experience it. And then once they experience it, they're like, aha, and I actually do think it's an amplifier to every other format and every other league. And, there's some people that are doing great events, the WCPPL. It's like, there's these things that are working. So let's not change those, and let's keep working with those. And if you're coming from a place that maybe you don't have the luxury of, having a 5 guys on your team, and let alone 5 guys to play against, let alone, a big bunker kit, let alone, a deep pocket to shoot 10, 20, 30 cases a weekend. Well, this is a perfect thing to do instead. So for instance, in Brazil, this is taking off because in Brazil, they don't have those means like you guys have in Texas, right? SC Village, it's not taking off. They've got it organized. Texas, it's not taking off. Florida, it's not taking off. I know that I think Legacy Paintball Park has a one-on-one field, and I think people are playing it. I think there's a few fields like there's one in Tennessee. They've got a standardized one-on-one field always available, which I just think is cool. If I was a player, yeah, you're packed with events and packed with practices, but maybe you want to take those weekends off. I never took weekends off. So those weekends off, I would go be doing that. I'd be doing this one-on-ones thing and even if you just went for an hour or two. So I still think there's a practical insertion for this format, even in Texas. Maybe it's not the thing, because you've got a lot of things, but it's definitely should be something that Fit adopts at their field, that X Factor always has running. And it's just 16 bunkers that's there. And if you want to go and you want to, cut your teeth and you want to improve your sharpness and, kind of refine your skills, this is a perfect example for that. Now, with that being said, at the same time, I think we've got a leg up on the 5-man because I think we've got something that's more pragmatic for outside people who don't know paintball to watch. It's easier, it's cleaner, it's simpler, it's cheaper. It just really ticks off all the boxes of what paintball, it's funny, we see it, but it's hard to get it across. With the dual, the Elite 101, it's easy to get it across once you've seen it. So, we just filmed an epic show. That was the whole intention with the grand finale. Beautiful location at Prime Paintball. Miko directed it. Alex was there interviewing it. All of the 8 athletes from around the world came. They looked good. They looked professional. They looked like, they were our pros. And, we're going to build something that I think the NXL can't even build, or whatever it's called now, in terms of a show. It's just too hard. It's really hard to understand paintball. If you really, again, kind of go back to your question, what I would fix, and also a sub question to Dan's question is, if we had like $1 billion like in baseball or football, I think you could pretty much make an epic 5-on-5 X-ball show. But it just costs a lot of money, and we can do that for a fraction of the price with the one-on-one and make an epic show where people can understand. So I think a lot of the, my vision has always been let's make paintball like football. But you're from Texas, bro. Paintball is never going to be like football. Football is an American sport.
No, it's a religion here in Texas.
It's a religion, I look, and I sat down with Brandon Short years ago, and we discussed this in great lengths, and we were both, paintball needs to be like tennis, and that's what the duel is. The duel is a tennis version of paintball. The X-ball could be like a football version of it. But again, you're going to need that billions of dollars to create that type of production and make it look really good. For a fraction of the price, I can make it really good, with the Elite 101. It's a combination. I see the duel as kind of like combination tennis and wrestling, That's how I see it.
Yeah. There's definitely potential, even going back to what we were saying about if for paintball to expand in new directions, you almost need to tear some of it down or do something completely different in addition to it, but outside of the current ecosystem of the NXL or the Major League. And it's definitely not an easy thing to do, but someone like yourself who has the drive, has the vision, has the has the time as well, and the energy. It is a task that I think we're seeing more and more, that paintball can be very stubborn as a community. And I'm excited to see it take off more and more. And for those that have been looking at my social media pages, I think it was yesterday, I posted a little teaser of an AI photo of two. I typed in paintball joust into AI, and so you got some knights in shining armor holding paintball markers. So it's coming back here in Texas. I'm waiting on my second general to confirm with me, but expect an announcement here pretty soon for the next one.
Cool. I love that. Love that. And anything we could do to support. And you're right. We're living in really interesting times. It's like you look at the governments, look at the way things are operated and run. There does need to be a reformation of things, and in order to reform things, you do need to rip some things down and things need to change. And unfortunately, human beings don't like change, even though it's really good for you. So, we always want to keep it the same. We want to live in our glory days. We never want to age, and it's like, no, it's all about evolution. And, you have to kind of dismantle yourself. I mean, I know I had to. You have to dismantle your sport. You have to dismantle your career. Your identities, you're going to get crushed, to be honest, in life. You're going to lose your job. Your freaking girlfriend's going to dump you. Your parents are going to die. And all these things are motivators, as hard as and triggering as they are. I think if we're just living in a lie and pretending like, oh no, paintball's great and this is the best it's ever been, and we just keep it this way, it's the same thing as the governments, it's the same thing as all the systems. It's like, you're right, we need to slightly strip things away and take the good things from that past, apply them into the future, and then reshape them for the future. And that's evolution.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of evolution, this one's brought to us by the Splat Zone Trinity 3-man series. I want to talk about your evolution over time. I do my best to do as much research as I can heading into each one of my episodes. So that naturally involved looking up highlight reels from the height of your career and the Ollie Lang of the 2010s and even around that area. You were known for your fiery pregame speeches. You had some electric game-breaking moves throughout your matches, and you were also more or less the face of the game at that time. You were on the cover of countless paintball magazines. You were I think like widely known when the Ironmen picked you up as like the first $100,000 paintball player. So looking back now, how do you look at the persona and the life of the Ollie Lang now 9 years post retirement?
Yeah, well, I'm stoked, to be honest, because I'm into evolution. I'm into growth. I'm not that 17-year-old kid anymore. I'm not that 23-year-old kid anymore. I'm not that kid that was on Dynasty. I'm actually becoming a man. I think you're blessed if you become a man in this lifetime, and the only way to really be doing that is by continuously challenging yourself, pushing yourself into uncomfortability, moving to foreign countries, learning new languages, having new jobs, new businesses. This is just part of the blueprint of existence in this time, so I'm stoked where I'm at. I love life. I feel like I'm just beginning. I feel like, you probably never got to really see me play. I feel like I was the best, and internally, I don't care what anybody says. Maybe some people can agree with me. Really, all that's worth is just recognizing your value, recognizing that, hey, I can do this, and essentially building and gaining what's called confidence and courage. And when you have those things, which takes time, which is part of the lesson of sports, part of the lesson of success in businesses, part of the lesson of successful relationships, you really just get to a high level of being, and that's where I'm at. And I'm recognizing that my paintball career isn't over. So when you retire from something, it's also just the beginning of something, So when you end something, there's a beginning, right? You probably understand that in different contexts. But so, this elite one-on-one thing, what I want to do for the sport, what I want to do for the players, I want to get the players paid. I used to be the one who wanted to get paid. I want to pay people now. So that's an evolution. See, You know, Dave Youngblood did that when, he sponsored me and gave me the $100,000 contract for 5 years. He used to be a high paid player, and then he built his brand, and then, he was able to afford a player like myself and a team, and, it's history. That's a high level of being. If you're just getting paid and then you just disappear, well, I guess your career is over. But if you evolve it into the next thing and, listen to the whispers of, God or whatever you want to call it, and it tells you what to do, and it brings you to the places and meets you with the right people, you start to align your own team. And that's kind of where I'm going with this is the next level of mastery of the sport for me, So some people, and anybody doesn't think I was the best, well, once I do this, then you can know that I'm the best, because I not only did it on the field, won more tournaments than I can even remember or count, and did more glorious moves than I can even remember or count or care to remember or count. These things are the everlasting things. Like, this is going to be the stuff that'll go down truly in a paintball Hall of Fame, if there's ever a real, true Hall of Fame. It's like, you look at every great, basketball player. Like, look at Michael Jordan. Excellent player, excellent team player, made everybody around him better, won games, in a heyday of basketball, and then transitions out of it to, making a brand and shoes and clothing line that's literally multi-billion-dollar international brand. To me, that's legacy. That's, next level of the sport. It probably does a lot more that I don't even know about, So if you're just a player and you just disappear with your, that's the other thing in paintball. You're not going to walk away with a big chunk of cash to go live live the rest of your life in comfort. You have to do things, and if we do truly love this sport, you have to figure out, what the sport needs. And that was, for me, that was about a 6-year hibernation, watching, the sport from a distance, not being interwoven into it whatsoever, fully distancing myself from the whole game, and then that's where I met you when I was on the comeback there. And that was my reinsurgence in, and that was me recognizing what the sport needs, where the holes are in the game. Again, this is a mental chess match. This is a paintball game I'm playing in life. I'm not just going and shooting off the break here. I'm actually trying to understand the full scope of the game, the industry. Starting a brand is a big part of it. I never thought I'd own a brand in the industry ever. So, again, these are different layers to the mastery, and it's just beginning, and I would like to say that one day when it's all over, when I'm 80, 90, 100, 200, whatever I live to, I can look back and say, okay, the Elite One-on-One is a multi-international business that's, paying players at a high level, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to win events. It's televised. We've got a new, 700 million people playing paintball because of it. Whatever the stats are, again, those stats, I probably won't know in detail, and I maybe won't even ever know, but I know that there was actually a true impact in the growth of the sport. Now, that's legacy, and that's something that's really important to me. And again, I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it actually because I freaking love the game, and I like the people, and it's my heart and soul, and I grew up playing the sport, and I feel like it deserves something more than it has, and it has had, and it has had moments of glory, but truly it's still in infancy.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking more about your return, this one's brought to us by BEMRAP. So it was
Shout
such
out
a
BEMRAP.
pleasure to
I
get
love
to.
those guys.
Oh yeah. Shout out
I
to
watch
Brandon and
them.
Megan.
They're cool.
Yeah. So it was, again, such a pleasure to get to sit down with you when you were making your comeback at X Factor. It was like one of the first practices back right before the World Cup at 2022. And I remember, and I actually went back and watched this video just before this show. I remember the energy that you had then. As far as like as a player, it was much more like you still had the fire to compete and to be the best and to win, but you were also seemed to be more conscious about being in the moment with the rest of the guys on Dynasty, and just having that gratitude to be able to experience it once again. And when I spoke to you as far as like the circumstances of how it came to be, you said that your return to the field just happened to work out in the moment. So now that we're a few years past that, what did getting to step back on the field with Dynasty mean to you?
Yeah, again, I think everybody needs a good comeback. So I was fighting it. Trust me, I was fighting it for a long time. I didn't want to do it, and again, it kind of worked out. We were filming the Iron Kids documentary. I needed to come back. Um, Obviously, somehow, maybe it's just divinity or Alex aligned it this way, but it was a couple weeks away from World Cup, and it was like, "Well, you're coming to World Cup," and I was like, "Well, I didn't even think about it." But then it's like when you get onto the field with the guys and you're playing, okay, just side comment, like when you're saying, I think the paintball players are better now. I don't know how I can come out of retirement unless I'm really freaking good at this game and not play for 7 years ever, and then, win a World Cup. So there's something to be said there in terms of either, I don't know, either the quality of game isn't as good or I'm still really good. I figure it out, but you get on the field and it's just, it's home, and so my body just knows how to play the game. Also, it's really fascinating just to see what the body can do. It just knows what to do. I didn't even do anything. I always wanted to play with Archie. So that was like a big perk, to be able to say I was on the team with Archie, and then to win a tournament with Archie was a big accomplishment for me, because I've always been a fan of Archie. He's been a fan of me, and we're good friends now. But I've always just loved the way he plays. I think he did so much for Texas paintball. I think he really gave people that, wow, like you can be really good at this, and he is a phenom, just a great guy in general. So it was a culmination of things. I got to play with Dalton again. I really love Dalton. Like, Dalton's one of my favorite people on the planet. And then, of course, Yosh and being back there with Alex and even Ryan, it was just natural. And to enter back into it was definitely a lot of fun. I still love playing paintball, no doubt. Like I said, it's in me. Do I want to do it at a high level and compete and take the time it takes to be really good all the time? No, so that was like a perfect little, insertion of my abilities for that moment. And it was a good story, and it definitely felt good. And it was fun to catch one more win. I'd never won 3 World Cups in a row. I'd won 2 World Cups in a row. So, I guess I didn't win those first 2 with Dynasty, but I got that third feeling. So that was just like another weird, kind of mark under the belt. And just great to come back to the sport, and great to see all the people that I didn't see for a long time, and people were stoked to see me, and that just felt really good. And it's interesting how the distance makes your heart grow fonder. And so I really felt like the warmth of the community. And again, another level of this is when you start to appreciate people more when you don't have to compete against them, A, and then B, when you've known them for a long time. So I'm actually I'm a fan of a lot of people, the guys like Ryan Moorhead. I've known him forever, and we always had to compete against each other. But then to see him at the event, he's changed man. I'm a changed man, and we can meet in a different degree of connection. And that was what's really was special about that World Cup, was just reconnecting with old friends who actually I had to battle against my whole life, and they had to kind of be an enemy to me in a sense. And then to actually just be a fan of them. And then, of course, I have to go out and play against a few of them every once in a while. And that felt fun. And it felt good to bunker some people. It felt good to shoot some people, no doubt. And it felt good to win the World Cup, of course, so it's just kind of a full scope blessing.
Yeah, as we often say here on the show and a lot of other shows, that paintball is it's about the moments off the field and the connections with the other people that are in the community. And it was great to get to experience that, even with the craziness that was that 2022 World Cup, with the hurricane coming in, and one less day, all the flights being question mark up in the air. But that was it was certainly a event to remember. with your return on the field, if only for a little while. But let's also talk about your company, because I think the 2022 was the first year that Hormesis had the booth set up at the World Cup, and it has since grown and even bigger year after year with the Oasis. I've gotten the pleasure of getting to man the project booth in there for a couple of years. It's become a something that I look forward to at World Cup. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Hormesis here. This one brought to us by my friend Guillermo and his mariachi band, Mariachi Águilas de Oro. So Hormesis popped up and started gaining traction shortly after the COVID pandemic started. And it was initially focused on headbands and like a way to express yourself on the field, getting some color back into the game in a time where it was all about the black on black and the team packages and everybody looked the same, which I could not stand. But now it's expanded to all sorts of accessories, outfits, casual wear, and that's just on like the Hormesis attire side, not to mention the productions, and then of course the dual world tour. So was the current state of Hormesis with all of the expansion into the different branches, was it always the vision, or has it did it start as the idea with the headbands and the attire, and it's taken off to something even greater than what you'd originally thought it would be?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely taken off to something greater than we thought it would be. I mean, I think if I would have called Alex and said, "Hey, Alex, let's start a paintball company," he would have said no. So the headband was a perfect product to have a shoe in, and it was a big success. I mean, headbands have always been this interesting thing in the game. I could tell you the whole story on why. But it was always somewhat hard to get Sandana headbands for some reason, even when we first started. And I remember Alex ordered Sandana headbands, and the guy was super cool, and he gave us like a bunch of extra stuff. And that's when Alex gave me one, because I couldn't afford one. I didn't even know what it was really. And then, then you had your Sandana headband, and the Sandana was like, yeah, you didn't know when you could get another one, pretty much. And you had to wear it all the time. And then it kind of became your Lucky Mojo thing. And I mean, we made Sandana. I mean, I personally made Sandana, and I'll say that out loud, because Sandana was a dying company back then, and I wore Sandana, and I knew the guy, and I could get Sandana. Not everybody could get Sandana, and then I would give Sandana to certain people that I liked. Todd Martinez. Certain guys would wear the stuff that I could get, and again, it was rare to get it because Sandana was a dying company then already. This was 1998, 2000, right? So Sandana lives because of me and because of us. And so, what's funny is we never thought about it, but, when Hormesis came through, I was like, this is a perfect thing, because we are headbands. We made headbands cool. Headbands are a thing because of us. Okay, I give Billy Saransky and Mike Bruno credit, actually, because they wore Sandana. People wore Sandana before my time, but those were the guys who were pulling from that very old school era, the pre-2000s or late 90s. Sandana was already gone. Mike Bruno had a Sandana headband, Sandana wrap. So did Saransky, Todd Adamson, even Aftershock, the real deal Aftershock. And they looked rad. And, we wanted to be like them. We wanted to be badass. So we got that. We had Iron Kid sponsor Sandana. And somehow, some way, I don't know, the guy kind of individually sponsored me. So I had more Sandanas. So I was the Sandana bank. And people would come to me to get product. And actually we started HK because of that. I ended up giving them a bunch of product, and they ran with it. HK is, a byproduct of Sandana also. Hormesis is a byproduct of Sandana. So shout out to Sandana, the guy Brian who invented it, man. I don't even think he knows what he's done for the sport. Hormesis was just a byproduct of that. It was perfect. It was like, okay, let's make a cool headband, Alex, and let's see if we can sell them. He said, sure. They sold out. They kept selling out. They kept selling out. We're like, okay, we got something. And when we were going into this, Alex's original statement to me was very cool because this gave Alex and I a platform to reconnect beyond the game, right? And Alex is my oldest childhood friend. We knew each other since the 7th grade and still running, So, he trusted in me and we did it. And he said to me, this is our art project, Oliver. This is an art project. So, to answer your question of NXL and knowing what they're going to do with their flag in the ground, Hormesis is our art project, and we've done nothing but pour money back into the industry. And I think that's why people like us and support us, is because they know that we care deeply. I haven't got a paycheck from Hormesis for 2 years, and we just literally pour it all back into the art. So it's all art. I have 2 stores here that I'm selling, stuff that I'm making here in Bali to people who don't even play paintball. Hormesis is a brand beyond paintball also. We have Hormesis Productions. We're producing films. We just produced All That Matters. Miko directed it, shot it. That was a 2-year laborious project, $250,000, maybe even more. So we're trying to give back, and we're trying to just make art. And people who see it and recognize it and appreciate it love us. There's going to be haters out there, and there's going to be people who wear Sandana. They don't even know why they're wearing Sandana. They're wearing Sandana because we made it cool. And, Hormesis stands for a lot. And I feel like, again, Hormesis is still beginning. We're still not where we want to be, but we're going to keep pouring money back into the sport. The Elite 101 was a huge cost. We traveled all around America in a van or in an RV, showing up to fields, setting up fields, having the fields make money on it. We didn't even make money on it. And, the Elite 101 World Tour, we just pretty much funded all these guys to come to Alabama and shoot an epic show, and we're going to get something from that hopefully in the future. So we're just kind of setting ourselves up for success. We're doing all the right things, I feel. Again, I'm just a generous person. I love to give. I'll give you the shirt off I'll give you the shirt. You want it? It's yours, because I want you. If you want it, you can have it, and I feel like the more you give, the more you receive. And I've been incredibly blessed in this sport, like, just beyond belief, from free product to free trips to friends to fanciest restaurants to fancy hotels to, experiences of a lifetime this is living, what paintball gave me. So it's only my duty to return it in any way possible, shape and form. And Hormesis is my key to being able to do that. It's really a gift. Hormesis has been nothing but a gift. It saved my life. It brought me back into paintball, got me reconnected with people like you and people who are listening, got me reconnected with a stronger connection to Alex than we ever had. And, a new relationship to the team and Dynasty and other pros and other people who wear my product. Like when you wear my product, man, I know who you are and I like you. I really appreciate you for wearing my product. And I appreciate you if you buy my product, because we're just trying to pour it back into the sport, and try to get more people inspired, more people, interested in, even it's a minimal thing. It's a headband, it's not even a goggle system or a loader, or it's really just still small. We don't even really make much. We made some packs here and there, we made some pants, we made some gloves, and we're making clothes, but we're not even cracking into the bigger stuff in the sport. So see more, wait for us. We're coming. We're going to turn pro here soon. We're still amateur B.
I love it. Yeah. And so talking more about your relationship with Alex in Hormesis. So what does, as far as like the behind the scenes goes, what does the division of responsibilities between the two of you look like?
Good question. So I'm making everything in Bali. It's all handmade. The process is pretty laborious. I mean, yeah, again, it's still just a headband, but I got to buy the material. I got to batik the material. I got to dye the material. I got to cut and sew the material. So I pretty much deal with all that. Now, obviously, I've expanded into just men's garments. I'm moving into women's garments. I've got 2 stores here, so it's a business here. I run and operate those. I've got, 10 employees and a handful of tailors and, dyers and printers and all these types of things, label makers and such. So I kind of monitor and handle that. I send it to Alex. Alex is, he's a master of, he really knows. He's a great designer. He's always been. So it's really given him an outlet to design more. He designs all the boxes, all the labels, all the paper wrappings, and he stores everything and ships everything. And then now we have Miko Hutanan, who's come on the team now. He's been on the team now about 3 years, and he's just been an absolute ace for us. Miko Hutanan was also by far one of my favorite players. If you don't know, he played on the Ironman with me, and he was better than Trent Mason, shooting off the break 100%. He was one of these guys who he made a front guy's life so easy. He would shoot. Back then, we call it the apple and the orange, which would be like, the first two bunkers out of the center. And he would shoot the apple or the orange or whatever it was that was necessary for a shot off the break every time. Not every time, a lot of the times, which then gives me nobody to work against, which gives me opportunity to shoot and wrap into the back center, which gives me opportunity to go in the snake, bunker the snake guy, or get down the snake and shoot the other guys. He was an excellent team player, and we brought him on. He's a freaking fantastic designer himself. He's really a Renaissance man. Actually, his story is amazing. He came from Finland. He joined the Russian Legion at the peak of Russian Legion. Russian Legion was picking up players from all over the world, and he showed up, and they would grind like 5 days a week in this little inside facility in Russia. They'd pay him like $1,000 a month or something. And Russian Legion was really was the pro team. I was even thinking about going to Russian Legion at one point because their system was so professional. They had 5 coaches. They had the best players. They had everybody was on salary, and they were playing paintball as a job. Really, it was really impressive. And Miko was that guy, and then he came and played in America, played on the Ironmen, worked at Dye. He eventually became the VP of Dye. And he learned a lot of skills. So bringing Miko in was a no-brainer. We put him into this job of creating All That Matters. He produced probably one of the best paintball films of all time. And that was just kind of his like hobby project in the other times of producing product for us. So, huge shout out to him and what he's done for us. So really the team is Alex, Miko, and I. In Hormesis, we've got a lot of people who help. Shout out Roman Jacopi. So some of these types of guys who have been there with us in the beginning, supported us, working for us, and we're still growing. We're still we're amateur B. We're gonna get to that pro spot soon, and I think we'll probably be the coolest brand in paintball from that day out. Because I don't think there's anybody in paintball who cares about paintball as much as paintball as much as we do.
I would argue that your brand is already knocking on the door, if not already there, to be the coolest in paintball. So
thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. And you're right. There was that time where paintball was pretty stagnant in terms of style. The headband game was always about being an individual. We put on a pro team. This was your opportunity to have like a little bit of a individualism. And the headband was that thing, everybody always had to wear the same jersey, use the same gun, wear the same pack, wear the same pants, so your headgear was the thing that made you stand out, again, look at Ryan Moorhead. He wears the American flag bandana, that's iconic for him. Right. So it's what you wear on your head makes you individualized. And that's what Hormesis stands out. We want to make something that's meaningful. When you put on a karate headband, there's a lot of metaphysical science that's involved in that. It's about focus. It's about courage, bravery. There's different icons that go on a karate headband that stand out and that mean things. And that's what Hormesis is doing. If you align or you feel resonance to a specific line or specific color or specific pattern, we imbibe those things with the power so that you can have that when you play, or at least you can feel like you have that. Ultimately it still comes down to you, but that's the essence of a headband, and that's the value and the importance of it. And that's why I think people are buying in on it so much and appreciate it so much, because we're actually making something from the heart that matters, and you wear it, and you should have your individualism through that product. And, when someone takes a photo of you, you can tell who it is.
Love it. Yeah. Here in the chat, kind of speaking on the headband, we got ABJ here.
Love that guy.
What's your take on beanies then?
Beanies great. I wear beanies too. it just kind of depends on weather, right? It's a little bit about the circumstances, right? If it's a little chillier, beanie. I like beanies. I like they were called head wraps. We call them scintillas. And then I would always wear a headband. Headband. I'd have a tournament headband that was like pretty much reserved for tournament time only, so I didn't lose the mojo. I was super superstitious, still am. And sometimes I'd wear the beanie over that, and sometimes actually the beanie and then the headband. But yeah, we don't. Everybody can make a pretty decent beanie, so it's not really our forte. Again, it depends on the weather and the situation, but beanies are cool.
Yeah, for sure. So this one brought to us by Colt Roberts and his paintball kumite. Speaking of karate mentality there. So talking more about the Hormesis Productions branch. So at World Cup last year was the feature release of All That Matters, which is the film that you guys have been working on since, I want to say, like 2022. It's been in the works for a little while, and it features several icons of the game. And we've heard from Alex on some of the shows that he's been on as far as his role and his vision for the project. But could you tell us a little bit more about, I guess, your responsibilities when it came to the movie?
Well, pretty much I didn't do anything. I just got some nice producer credits. Again, a team is a beautiful thing. We work in a great team essence, Alex and I. So Alex proposes me something and I say, I trust you, bro. Go with it, run with it, figure it out. I thought it was a great idea when he proposed it to me. I think he was going to try to propose it to Bard and to the NXL to try to produce something like this, but it was really a film to try to make people play paintball. It was based on these old Warren Miller films where, I don't know if you've seen these, they're pretty great, but they're just fun videos of this guy skiing, and it makes you want to go ski. And, paintball videos, we used to sit, me and Alex, we used to sit around for hours and hours and hours and just watch paintball films. There was an old Hyperball video I highly suggested if it's on YouTube. It's really great. The guys from WDP produced it. I mean, we must have watched this thing 1,000 times. It was in a VHS, and you put it in the thing, and I'm surprised it even still worked. We watched it so many times. And then Trauma Head Sports, and then it moved into Dirter, and then it moved into obviously Push and Sunday Drivers. Serial killers, so these things were the things that really made you alive to want to go play paintball, and we just haven't had that for a long time. So Alex wanted to revive that, and Miko was the perfect candidate for it. I pretty much just said press play and let's go. I didn't have any creative input on that whatsoever, so I don't even deserve anything except for the fact that I paid for it. And that's what a producer does.
Love it. I've got an idea that I'd like to share with you off air about something that I've would like to see happen. Cool. So yeah, let's chat more about that after the show. So another question here in the chat from Dan again. He asked, specifically speaking about Hormesis, what are you most proud of so far?
Yeah, great question, Dan. Man, this guy Dan, he's got some good questions. What I'm most proud of so far is just this interwoven experience with the paintball community, with guys that I would have never have known if I didn't do Hormesis. We have the Hormesis community. I'm in there every day. I know who everybody is, and it's just really cool to actually be friends with these people who are fans of me and fans of the product. I mean, what other business, what other brand does that? I don't know. I don't know if the owner of Nike or any of these guys do that, but that's like a firsthand touch into the community. And I think that's so cool. And I'm super proud of that. We're just about to release the community line, which we do every year. And pretty much we just see who's active and who's posting and who's sharing and who's commenting and, who's really alive and who's got a positive inspiration into this little, interweb. And, we just congratulate them. Hey, thanks for supporting us here. We support you. Here's some headbands, and here's a headband with your name on it. I think the community aspect of it is really cool. I think the paintball community, like you said, is pretty brutal in places. Obviously, we just saw like the brutality of it. In the Hormesis community is not like that, man. It's a cool place. It's a good place to just even go in there and share photos of your dog wearing your headband, or I don't know, whatever it is. It's funny, you know, and it's a safe place for people to go in and network. And, you know, people have made connections and made friends and joined teams. And, you know, like two of the guys from the original, you know, group, Manny and Pat, you know, they met in the Hormesis community, and, you know, they're godfathers to their children now, you know? So there's stuff that's so cool that's beyond paintball. You know, this was just, again, a way to weave everybody together. And to me, I'm very proud of that.
Love it. Yeah, great answer. Hormesis, you guys have had, I would say, a lot of success, and you have grown very quickly, I'd say, into one of the largest companies that's in the game. So what other goals do you and the company have going forward?
Well, so like, again, you know, like I said, Alex and I work really great as a team. Pretty much I pitched him this whole elite one-on-one thing, and he said yes, you know. So he doesn't have so much involvement in elite one-on-one, just like I didn't have that so much involvement in you know, the All That Matters. I don't have much involvement in the Great American Paintball. It's like we're kind of just trusting each other with each other's projects. And I'm just I'm inspired by the elite one-on-one. I really see the future in it. I really see what it could bring to the outside world, how it could really become a sport. And I'm aiming towards that. That's where my focus and that's where my goals are, you know, aimed. In that, you know, we're going to redesign all the kit that you need to play paintball. I used to hate putting on my gear. That was like the one, if you want to call it hard work, that was the hard work for me, was schlepping around this large gear bag of all this stuff. And I dressed like an astronaut, you know, and I don't know, I didn't think I looked that cool. I want to redesign what it looks like to play the game. You know, that's where Hormesis is going. We're going to still foster all the other stuff. You know, I just sent Trauma guys are playing a 10-man. I just made them a bunch of cool retro jerseys. You know, so we're in the past and we're in the future. And we've got our fingers in both of those. And we want to foster the 10-mans. We want to foster the woods ball. We want to make cool headgear for you know, scenarios or whatever. And then I want to do the joust and the elite one-on-one. And, you know, I've got a big vision for that and the possibilities of that. And then Hormesis is just going to be, you know, kind of sit steady along that way of supporting all of these other aspects. And I'd like to really become innovative again. You know, the sport, I feel like, hasn't been innovative in a long time. You know, there was, like I said, there was an arms race there where every company needed to come out with a new goggle, you know, quite regularly. And they needed to advance the sport. And I don't feel like that's happened. You know, I feel like the carbon goggle is probably one of the best goggles on the market. You know, JT's still selling goggles from 50 years ago. I mean, it is a good goggle, but it's just, there's no innovation. I'd like to innovate, you know, I'd like to innovate a goggle. I'd like to innovate a loader. I'd like to innovate a gun. I'd like to innovate, you know, I'd like to innovate the formats. I'd like to innovate how the fields set up their fields and their systems. I'd like to innovate the players. Right now, you know, there's a lot of players who can teach you how to snap shoot. And I'm grateful for that, but there's more to the game. You know, I'd like to innovate you, you know, with your mindset and your mentality and what it means to actually play pro, you know, what it looks like. You know, there's only a few guys doing it that are innovative. The game, I just don't feel like the actual game is innovative anymore. You know, there's no more. I mean, man, Fedorov used to stand on his head, bro. He used to be a ballerina out there. You know, I would come through and crush you. Like, that was my style of play. How do you play now? You know, there's no innovation even in the style. And I'm a big style guy. I come from skateboarding. You know, if you don't have a good style, you can have a really ugly style in skateboarding, and that's a style. Or you can have a really crisp, clean style, and that's a style. And you pick your certain players based on pretty much their favorite style. I mean, everybody can do the same trick. It's just how they do the trick, you know? I'm a big fan of ABJ. He's got a great style, you know? Not a lot of guys in the snake have a good style anymore. Nobody has style. I hate to say it, again. So I want to innovate that, I want to make people dress nice off the field, look professional. When you get on the field, you look professional. When you play the elite one-on-one, you're going to have a new airy, it's going to be a brisk vibe. If you saw those new Defy jerseys, we made some for Hormesis also. It's just a cleaner look. And that to me, that's important. Like, I just don't think people in paintball look good anymore. So that's kind of that's where I want to go. I want to help people, figure out their style, figure out their character in the game. That's a big part of why also I think the sport hasn't grown, is we just don't have rascal characters. We don't have guys. We have some heroes. You get some Ryan Greenspans. We used to have more rascals. You used to have more like pirate type guys, robbers and crooks and gang members. And, I think there was even a pimp at one point that played paintball, so it's like, it's so vanilla, and I want to give you guys the opportunity to make yourselves spicy, and Hormesis is my way to do that, because if I just talk about it and I'm just talking head,
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I have no doubt that Hormesis is definitely going to have the opportunity and the community behind them in order to expand to those visions. So let's see here in the chat. I want to get to a few more of these. This is from Justin saying that a 1v1 dual vlog by you would be sick. Basically everything that you go through, the whole production team having to set up and what goes on behind the scenes. I believe that you did that for the first season of the duel. Is that correct?
That's right. So again, we're falling into a media trap here. Justin, great question. I'm with you, bro. And I want to do more of that, and I will. And thank you for the inspiration on that. But man, go to Hormesis Productions on YouTube, dude. We have like so much cool content of all of this, and it's hilarious, and it's quality, and it's inspiring, and it's educational. I just did a very cool one with Dylan. I think it's on his thing, but it's pretty much dueling for dummies, and it's like a whole educational process. I went out to Kansas City, Missouri, and did with All Stars, and we just did this really intensive day of duels, and we filmed it all, and it's all there. So we have a lot of content to answer that question, and there's going to be more, of course. For some reason in paintball, we get lost in the media world. When I was a kid, man, I was such a nerd in this, bro. I would have spent hours and hours and hours and hours watching all of your YouTubes, watching all of your podcasts. I'd know everything just by watching, And I feel like a lot of people, I don't know, maybe they don't have the attention span, or it's just not known. But yeah, we have a Hormesis Productions YouTube, and it's epic stuff on there. So I invite you to go check it out.
Yeah, for sure. This one is from one of my teammates on my team, Brandon. He asks, are we going to see you make any coaching appearances in 2026?
No chance. I don't believe in 5-man paintball anymore. I'm sorry to burst that bubble. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of energy. You don't even win anything. Nobody cares. It's no chance. You might see me playing in Elite 101 duel. You might see me being a general in the joust. You might see me, doing more stuff like that. I'll be in Texas for this giant party sports joust and duel, and be, playing, running the events, coaching guys. I like stuff like that. I like to give little.
When is that going to be?
We don't have the date yet. I just been speaking to Billy Saransky recently, but he's on board. He's got a pretty cool vision on a tournament joust version where you buy in, and then money goes to a pot, and if you win, you get that money, and there's a rebuy. You can, if you lose, you go to the loser's bracket, and you spend another $100, and then you come back in. And he's got a pretty cool vision. I don't know exactly how it's going to unfold, but we're going to do something cool.
All right. Well, hopefully the dates line up with and I'll be there.
Hopefully it's not on Mother's Day or a practice weekend or
or any of these other events throughout the year.
Yeah.
Man.
But I think to kind of digress a little bit, what you were talking about in terms of what you could be done. I think there needs to be a lot more tournament leagues, So I know you said there's a few, but like I know the WCPPL is rocking it. I just think there needs to be more of those, and maybe that's what the NXL does is, they just say, okay, all those divisions, you play all those events. And when you get to this division, you come to our event, and our event is the greatest event. And okay, we're going to play in this for a year or 2 years, and then bam, we're going to move to the NXL now. That could be a good stepping stone process. I mean, that's how it used to be. We used to play the Great Westerns, and if you did well in the Great Westerns, you went to the NPPLs, and that's how it used to work, And there was a lot of those Great Westerns. There used to be one in Texas. Steve Rabikoff used to run also. You know who Steve Rabikoff is?
Oh yeah, I know who Steve Rabikoff is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I was gonna say
that is exactly what I've been saying as far as like the scope creep that has taken over the NXL, and that I think more of. I think something that Tom Cole deals with a lot is being asked, how do you grow the sport? What is Tom doing to grow the sport? What is the NXL doing? Whereas like, I think that, to be completely honest, as far as like offering more ways and more entry points into the game, it needs to be at a local level. It needs to be
totally. You nailed
the
it.
local fields that are taking that on. And it shouldn't be the responsibility of this giant traveling circus. With thousands of dollars of entry fee alone, let alone the travel costs, the hotel. Like
that should be the pinnacle,
Mm-hmm.
And then there should be all these, the lower level ones. And you're right, man, you nailed it. I think every field owner and operator needs to be hosting their own events and, working their way up towards that,
Yep. And speaking of this upcoming weekend, is one of the sponsors of the show, the San Antonio 3v3. Shout out to Papa Sosh, doing his 3v3 series.
Do a one-on-one, bro. Do a one-on-one.
Yeah, I think we'll get the in the pits joust duel going here somewhere. Once we finalize the dates, but that'll be up and running. But yeah, Sasha's thing is his 3-man.
So this is a cool thing that you could do too. So I've been thinking about a lot of this because, a lot of people love team stuff. So you could do team jousts. You could have X Factor play Dynasty, or you have a local team play this other local team. The problem with that is then now it's still the same cost, right? Of pretty much funding a team. But that's possible. But I think what also could be really cool, I was talking about this a little bit on the Spick and Span show yesterday, is a tag team version. So let's just say it's like, me and Archie Barnes and you and Ryan Greenspan. So you could do like, 2 pros, or you could do pro am. You could do, father son, mother daughter. You could do all these versions of it. So you could have a 2-person version of it, right? So that's something you could interweave or test out, when you do this next one, is a tag team version of it. Because I know people want to also get with their buddies and go play. I think one-on-one does isolate you to a certain degree. That should isolate the guys who just really want to refine their skills. And then there's other versions of it. So you could have the 2-on-2. You could do a 3-on-3. You could do a joust where it's the Papa, where it's a 3-on-3, where one guy goes out, one guy goes out, one guy goes out, one guy goes. There's iterations of it that could be done.
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of rooms for experiments. I've had fun experimenting with the wild cards and the other thing that the generals could play throughout the match, expanding on the whole card system. There's
a whole thing there too. Yeah, there's a whole card game involved in that too.
Yeah, for sure. So Oliver, looking back on your time in paintball, do you have a single favorite moment in your career?
I had so many great moments, and I know people always answer those. I like to be concise when I ask these things. I mean, I think for me in a personal level, when we won 2007 on the Ironmen, when we had to rebuild the team, when I was getting paid, and we were playing a lot of paintball, and I felt like the paintball world was on my shoulders to prove myself. That was a great accomplishment. I would say just the magnitude of that was definitely the biggest and for my interpersonal scope and what I achieved and what I proved. I could say that's it. But then I could also say, winning the World Cup with all your heroes that you looked up to at the age of 17 and then shooting Aftershock. I shot like 7 Aftershock guys in that game. All the best guys, Ryan Williams, Todd Adamson, like all the guys I looked up to also. I could say that was probably one of my best also. That's really what at that point, was like, okay, this is really real, man. This is really real, Oliver. You're really doing something here, and that changed the trajectory. And that also created, my name. There was also a moment in time way before your time, my friend. But there used to be a Mardi Gras Open, which was done by Steve Rabikoff also, and which was always like a precursor to the year, and great event because it was at Mardi Gras. So we had a lot of fun. And it was my first event playing pro. My favorite team was this team called Image. I mean, these guys were freaking amazing. Just incredible athletes, incredible characters. I mean, these guys were real men. And I got to shoot all 5 of them, so people were like, who's this? So I think that moment. So to be honest, those 3 were probably the biggest. And then I just had so many with Dynasty that they're almost uncountable, untrackable, almost forgettable. But there was moments on Dynasty, obviously, where there was just so much love and so much success. I mean, I think in general, if I really had to boil it down, it would just be the whole Dynasty experience,
There's certainly a lot to choose from, in so many different lights. Yeah, I don't know if I could choose just one.
Yeah, so I hope that answers this question.
Yeah, for sure. So this one is brought to us by 71 Designs. So I know you just got back home recently from the duel finale. But for us here in the US, the season is very front loaded and the calendar, and the next NXL event in Cincinnati is only 2.5 weeks out or 3 weeks out, something like that. It's pretty close. So as far as your plans, what do you have coming up in the near future?
Well, we're just, I just got back, so it's always nice to get back after a long trip. I'm just going to try to get my shops and get my production organized. We are really going to try to fine tune this grand finale production. That's really the next thing. That's the big next thing. I feel like once we have that, we're going to have a very credible product that we can show anybody and everybody goes, wow, that's cool. I want to do that. That's the game. I mean, this kid, Justin, he just won $15,000 cash, bro. Tell me that isn't nice. I never won $15,000 cash as a player, individual player. I think the biggest amount of money I ever won was $5,000, right? So I want to keep, all steam ahead on that production, getting a quality product. And then from there, it goes into business. At that point, I got to go pitch production companies. I got to go get in front of people. I got to try to get in Dana White's hands. I got to try to get it into, people who see the vision's hands. And, kind of just prepare for 2026 Elite One-on-One. That's really, to answer your question, that's what's happening. Preparation for that.
All right. Yeah. And with the joust coming back to Giant, hopefully the duel makes it one of their pit stops as well. I would love to see you come back to Texas.
Yeah, I think it would be cool. So again, maybe this is kind of too far out, but I think for 2026, I'd like to start holding like Wimbledon style events for the duel. So next year, super good location, multiple fields, multiple divisions, kids, ladies, Masters division, Open division, Amateur division, Pro division, and really kind of knock it out of the park with just an excellent event. Beautiful location, great prize money, good sponsorship, incredible visibility, viewership, some type of streaming, capabilities, and really just focus on a couple good events I don't definitely by no means ever want to do anything like the NXL does in 5 events and, the traveling circus. And I definitely don't want to be Tom Cole and getting absolutely smashed by the paintball community for every little thing that I tried to do right. It's a lot of work, to run those events. So again, I give him a lot of credit in what they've done. But I don't want to do that. And so I'd like to just focus on like 1 or 2 just stand out alone events, freaking Archie Barnes comes in and wins, $100,000, like I want to see that. I want to know who the best duelers are. So that's kind of like the 2006 bigger picture vision that I'm aiming towards.
All right. Another question, I guess here, speaking of your upcoming plans, from Hostility, he asks, are you going to be present at the Utah event between Dynasty and Aftershock?
Dynasty asked me to go, but they haven't sent me an airplane ticket or anything. So back when I used to play paintball, people used to take care of me a lot when I played. So it's not just like, can you just show up, pay your way, get here? It'd have to be a little bit more in depth. So, I'm open. I'm not closed to it, but a lot of things would have to happen for that to happen.
Okay,
it would be fun. It would be fun.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what comes out of it with the the return to the old X-ball format. I wonder if they're going to have the field design also in the old format.
Yeah, they are. I saw the field design. It's wide open. Wide open.
Love it. All right.
Well, see, so let me just talk to you about that. So, because it came into the group chat. I'm in the Dynasty group chat, and someone's like, "Oh, that's the field. Like, how did anybody survive off the break?" And the thing is you don't survive off the break. 2 people die, 3 people die, sometimes 4 people die. Definitely. I mean, it's surprising if 5 guys get alive. But that makes for a quick turnaround. I'd shoot 2 guys off the break and I'd run up the center. I'd bunker 2 guys and shoot the other guy in the corner, and I'd get 5 packs. I'd get 5 packs, 6 5-packs a game, that's fun to watch, So with this new format and the way, or not new, but, going back to it, it's going to be a bloodbath and people are going to get shot. And that's also what's fun. It's 15 balls a second full auto in an open field. It's going to be a 3-on-3. And then also what's cool, I mean, I like to watch that when it's a 3-on-3, who puts it together? That's when the teamwork comes in. So it's kind of like a fire, and then all of a sudden our bomb explodes, and then you have to sift through it and then figure it out and then put it together and then win the point, and you have to do that a lot of times. We used to play points. We used to play matches. It was like, 25 to 15, that's like 40 points, right?
Yeah, I think the most amount of points that I've played in a single match was actually at Tampa earlier this year with a game that I was in, end in a 7-7 tie. And I thought that single match was definitely the most intense match because I don't think either us or the other team went up by more than 2 at all during the entire match. It was definitely the most intense and probably the most fun match that I've ever been a part of. And that was just because of how we were both playing the field. We were both playing it super aggressive and we were both disciplined with the towel whenever I called for it. So
right.
I would love to see more points played and faster points and just more
Totally.
excitement throughout the match.
Totally. Yeah, it'll be cool to see what the outcome of that is.
Yeah, absolutely. So this question is brought to us by Hydra. So is there anything else on your mind that you'd like to discuss? It could be about Hormesis, current events within the paintball community, could be about the popularity of the NXL and rumored and upcoming television opportunities, anything at all.
I mean, I feel like we've traversed a lot of terrain. I will say that I'd like to just say that this whole Marcelo thing was very unfortunate, and I feel like, and then we lost Jerry Caro the next week after that, and kind of just more not talk about it, but like just make a statement that like what you guys don't realize is how fragile things are, and we have one thing that's kind of gluing us all together, which is paintball. And, we just don't have time to outcast people. People will just die, you know. We need to really just include everybody and just love everybody and just recognize we're all working towards a certain goal, which is the growth of this sport, you know. And it could happen to you. You could be dead or you could be canceled. I feel like when you have those things that happen to you, this is an opportunity for us to all come together more, and to really learn from the past and move forward and forgive and recognize the value of the importance of our relations. And that's something that I learned a lot in this sport. And so I really hope people come together. I really hope people put their guard down on what teams they are and what companies they wear and what beliefs they have. And America is incredibly divided. It's insane. We're still in the race war. We're still in the freaking religious wars. And it's like, man, let's just leave all that out of paintball. Let's come together. Let's play this beautiful game. Let's leave it all in the field and let's all go and, hang out and be friends afterwards. Because that's really what it's about, and people said it time and time again, but it's sad to see how things unfolded and then, deaths. And it's like, man, we just ain't got time for that, man.
Yeah, I know that 2-week period in paintball or in our community was definitely a very, very tough one.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was messaging some of my friends, I just said, "Hey, the community's hurting right now," and just trying to figure out how to best help heal as much as we can.
Well, you just got to come together, man. Power in numbers. Unison. And that's really it. The good things should come out of all this. It takes the right ones to figure out what that is and what that looks like. But if we're against each other and we're hating each other or we're afraid of each other or it's not going to come. It's not going to happen. This should make us closer. All of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Like I put out a video on my not on the Major League channel, on my personal channel, but like the main, I guess, approach was attack or not attack, but challenge the actions rather than the people. If anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. It's a hard one, but the point is, we just don't want to lose people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are in need out there that are sick, that are hurting, that have addiction. Some people that don't even, and we're losing them or we're condemning them or outcasting them. And it's like, man, that's just not how I see this. And if I would have ever known that that's how it is going into this sport, I wouldn't have entered it. I want everybody to be a true community. And that's, kind of the ethos of that whole statement is, we should get stronger in these moments, not weaker and not dismantle each other more.
Yeah, definitely. So getting to questions, we're towards the end of our show here, everybody. So first off, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you have anything for Oliver, go ahead, get it in now because we're here towards the end, and I've got some saved from earlier on. Question here from Steve Blair. He asks, what was a better field, Mare Island or Fairgrounds?
A great question, Steve. Mare Island was obviously a better field because of what it fostered and the just the incredible natural dynamic of it and what paintball was then and how it was. But I will say, like, the Fairgrounds, I think, is what made me a better player. Again, Fairgrounds was like kind of an indoor place that was the next field that Eric Crandall ran after Mare Island. That's where I got good. That's where I really started to escalate my skills because it was indoor, kind of like the Elite One-on-One. I played just so much. That was the moment where I pretty much met Johnny Perchek, Dave Baines, and I pretty much made those guys into the players that they were. Johnny Perchek became an excellent player on Dynasty, player on Ironmen. A longtime friend. Dave Baines is obviously, a megalodon in the industry. That was the moment where we really excelled. And I have to thank them because they were there every weekend with me playing. A lot of guys weren't for some reason. Mare Island in general, definitely a better field. Definitely harbored just history. It was iconic. You can't ever, do anything like that again.
For sure. All right. See, next question from uh Nikki G. He asks about the next dual tour. He asks if you'll be visiting New York.
Yeah. So again, kind of like what we were talking about, I feel like New York needs to be doing these things. I can't go everywhere and do everything. I feel like local fields need to start adopting these things, to start doing it and start taking them seriously. And then when you have those qualifiers, those winners, pretty much I just could call anywhere in New York and say, who are your best guys? Send them out to this event. I would love to come and do something in New York. Eventually, maybe we do, a full event there, but there probably won't be qualifiers for that. I would like to do, in some type of iconic location,
All right. Cat Crasher says that you should start a podcast.
I think I think everybody else is doing a really good job. I don't really like the computer, to be honest. I don't really look at the computer. It's a good quality and a bad quality, because I could probably do a lot more if I looked at the computer, but my computer is brand new. I barely even opened it. This is the first time I opened it in like 4 months.
Oh, that's definitely a good thing. I think that I would like to limit the amount of time I'm on mine, but that's part of the direction that the world is going these days.
Totally. Yeah, but I'd like to maybe get more assertive on social media. Probably here once we start to get the elite dual stuff going, and be a little bit more of a face in that. I think that's important. Timing again. I don't think I'll start a podcast, but some type of vlog or some type of, short form videos and such like that. I like that stuff. And I've got a lot of information, a lot of wisdom beyond the scope of paintball, just in general. I've started to just get more interested in philosophy and spirituality and these types of things. And, wisdom of my life. I'm 41 years old now. I know a few things. I don't know much, but, those things could help you. So I would like to share those things.
Yeah, for sure. Another question here from ABJ. He asks about your time on Arsenal.
Arsenal was cool, man. That's a good question. I really love Tom Four, even though he's just said he was going to invest in the Hormesis Elite 101 and dropped out. But I still really do like him. I was playing on the Ironmen at the time, and he asked me. Ironman wasn't playing the NPPLs at that point, so he asked me. Just always took good care of me. He built an awesome team. He had a few of the beginning, the core guys of Arsenal, the JC, the Pats, Callie was on the team. And then, he got me and Tim Montresor, which I'm grateful for, because Tim Montresor and I always didn't like each other. He was on the All-Americans. Nobody liked the All-Americans. It was just like a thing. I was an Ironman guy, California, kind of East Coast thing. They were smart parts. We were die. And then we'd always beat them. So they were always the pissed off. And I remember I always bunkered the shit out of Timmy all the time and shoot him a lot of times, because I don't know, something happens when I go bunker somebody. Like my gun, my figures actually work. I don't shoot fast, but when I bunker you, I shoot fast. It's weird. I don't get it. So he always hated me. So I was grateful because Tim came and played on Arsenal. Tom orchestrated that. Tim didn't want to because he didn't like me. And then we became really good friends. And then we ended up winning, a couple events together. We even beat Dynasty at one point with a throw together team. J-Rab was on the team. J-Rab was up and coming. So it was a good moment in time in history of players and culmination. And definitely grateful for that experience with Arsenal. Like I said, I do like Tom Four a lot. So, you're in good hands with him.
Perfect. Nick Call asks, what ended up happening to the pro division of the 1v1?
Well, Nick, this might burst your bubble, but the pros were scared and they didn't want to play. And it was like hurting like little kids, man. It was like, there was like 2 or 3 guys, like a mouse was like a hell yeah, Jacob Edwards was like, yeah, I might have to work. Fedorov was like, I have to work. I'm like, I thought you guys played pro paintball. If Jacob was down, Fedorov was like, not. So anyways, I was trying to get all these, kind of badass pros that we all look up to. But to be honest, I don't look up to them anymore because they didn't say yes. There's only a few that were like, hell yes, there was like some weird sponsorship. Tyler Harmon couldn't play because he's HK, some lame excuse. Marcelo was game. Greenspan was game. So Archie was game. Archie was 100%, So there's certain guys that were like are real true pros to me in my book and that step up and say, yes, I'm there. And there's certain guys that are like, what's it in for me? And, a bunch of excuses. So that's what happened. It will happen. I don't know if I'm going to get those names, but we'll get Archie Barnes and we'll get all the real OGs who are ready to cut their teeth and make a name for themselves and win some money to play, and aren't afraid to, show your weaknesses in one-on-ones. Ultimately, when you show your weakness in one-on-one, if you're a true pro, you should just improve it. A lot of people are just afraid to step into that and put their name on the line. But to be honest, you're not a really competitor if you ask me if you can't do that.
Fair enough. All right. Last question that we'll get to in the chat for tonight. From High Ping Bot asks, who is your favorite player of all time?
Great question. Yeah, again, stats, right? So you got stats, you got people who shoot a lot of guys. And then you got guys who are just great guys, great motivators, great teammates. It's really hard to pinpoint that in a total sum. Definitely my first inspiration and favorite player was Shane Pastana. Just the way he played, the way he saw the game, the way he's just always just a bundle of joy and just a great, fierce competitor and was good. Playing wise, Richie Malacheski. If you don't know who he is, you need to know who he is. He was one of the three brothers on Image. He was pretty much the guy who invented the run through. And he was goofy, man. His style was goofy. He wore glasses in his goggles. He had his nice combed hair kind of poofing up with a visor. Just goofy, but incredibly talented, incredibly good, like just an amazing player. So those were probably the first two that, I could say. And then I'd say in modern era, I mean, modern era, you got to give it to Greenspan because of his duration in a sense. Definitely not my favorite player, but I would say the best in a sense. Hold on, it's coming to me. Oh, man, Fedorov at his point was freaking good. Fedorov used to stand on water, man. I would say playing-wise, probably Fedorov, in his day when he was just insane,
All right. Yeah, definitely some legendary names there to choose from. So Oliver, this question is one that I ask everybody that comes on the show that helps kind of get the word out on the up and comers and those that are otherwise flying under the radar. And it's brought to us by Get That Shot, who is a pro media guy. He shoots for HK on the pro field, and he just started a YouTube channel. So go check out his YouTube channel, Get_Shot. So Oliver, is there anybody within paintball? It could be a team, a player, another brand, a project, a community member, or anybody that you believe deserves more recognition for what they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. Yosh Rao. Yosh Rao is probably the greatest guy in paintball. Always has been, always will be. Always a stand-up character, always an excellent player, excellent teammate. Probably one of the most underrated players of all time also. He dwells in the shadows of, myself and Ryan and blah, blah, blah on Dynasty. But like Yosh is just that steady hand, always there, always available, always good energy, always freaking on point on everything. Does an incredible amount for, the Dynasty Champs Club, fostering those guys, that connection. He's pretty much the only guy who works at Field One, building all the guns, organizing everything. He's just, but that's also his style. He wants to kind of be under the radar. He doesn't want to have, he's never going to get iconic player of the year. He's never going to get the best player of the year. But like players like myself who play alongside of him, who know him as a person, just all around, probably one of the most outstanding guys in the sport by far. And you'd probably rather go up and get a Ryan Greenspan, tattoo or autograph, but really, Yosh Rao is the guy.
Absolutely. All right. So I think that does it for our show this evening, or in your case, this morning. Oliver, thank you so much for your time, for making time for this, calling in all the way across the world. So do you have any last shout outs or things you'd like to say before we sign off?
Yeah, bro, just appreciate you for inviting me on to share my story, share my insight, share my opinions. Again, they're just my opinions. They don't necessarily matter, but just giving me a voice. I feel like these are great opportunities for me to connect with the local, people in Texas and anybody else who watches your show. And just really grateful for you, bro. And just wishing you the best in all your success of all these things that you do. And this podcast and the Joust and working with Project, man, and just keep going. And if you need any support whatsoever, dude, I'm always available. You got my contact, and I'm here for you, bro. So keep doing you, keep inspiring a bunch of people. I hope more people follow your lead and make decisions and, the choices that you've made to become, who you are. Archie speaks very highly of you also, so, that's, to me, that weighs a lot in my book when I know somebody well and I think highly of them, and then they speak highly of other people. So, you're doing something really cool and good. And I just really want to salute you for that and keep going with it. And I said, man, I'm always here for you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you. So everybody online, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to go follow Oliver at Oliver Whitecloud on Instagram. Also go follow all of the different Hormesis pages, Hormesis Attire, Hormesis Productions, at Hormesis Paintball as well. And what other guests would you all like to see on the show? Be sure to leave a comment down below. While you're at it, hit that subscribe button. This show goes live Wednesday evenings at 7:30 p.m. Central here on the Major League Paintball YouTube channel. And recordings are posted to YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify the next day. I want to give a shout out to my partner and sponsor tier subscribers on Patreon. Get That Shot, Paintball Kumite, Bem Raps, Hydra, XTPL Events, Mariachi Aguilas de Oro, San Antonio 3v3 Series, 71 Designs, TexanHemp.com, QBRofficial.com, and Splat Zone Trinity 3-Man. And lastly, thank you to Major League Paintball for hosting the show. So we will see you guys next week for episode 148. Oliver, stick around for a quick second. I got that idea.
Get Brandon Short on the show. Get Brandon Short.
All right.
That's my vote.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Thank you so much.